noted the contents carefully. Regarding that building on 40th Street, try to get it as much as possible. But if the business of getting this building appears too difficult or complicated, then give it up. Are you going to check it? Okay. If you like, if this place is not possible, you may try for another similar place, which we did. And eventually, 3 years later, we purchased 340 West 55th Street. I received one telephone call this morning from Keshava, who is in California. Keshava is Karundar's brother. So he'll now be able to take over the affairs there in New York. So how you will be able to leave New York affairs? New York is our most important center in all the world, and it requires your strong leadership there or a suitable replacement. I do not think anyone is there who is able to become president and manage the press affairs altogether. So at that time in New York, we had ISKCON Press on Tiffany Place. So that was where all the small books were published, including all the pamphlets, like Reservoir of Pleasure. Regarding the question you have raised about traveling Sankirtan parties and selling of books, yes, we want money. So that is the real preaching, selling books. Who can speak better than the books? At least whoever buys, he will look over. If you have to sell books, do it by hook or crook. Do it by hook or crook. The real preaching is selling books. You should know the tactic how to sell without irritating. What your lecture will do for 3 minutes. But if he reads 1 page, his life may be turned. We don't want to irritate anyone, however. If he goes away by your aggressive tactics, then you are nonsense, and it is your failure. Neither you could sell a book, neither he would remain. But if he buys a book, that is the real successful preaching. That is the certificate of my Guru Maharaj. If someone, brahmachari, would sell a 1 paisa magazine, who knows what 1 paisa is? 1/100th of a rupee. Who knows what a rupee is? 1/100th of a rupee. It doesn't exist. In India, back in the day when we first went, they still had paisa. Because you could still buy things with a few paisa. But now there's nothing. Oh, it doesn't exist anymore. Some old coins, paisa. If one of our brahmachari would go and sell a few copies, he would be very glad and say, "Oh, you are so nice." So distribution of literature is our real preaching. Now, if you cannot handle the matter nicely, that is your fault. But the success of your preaching will be substantiated by how many books are sold. Anything you want to sell, you have to have a little canvas. So he gives some money for the service of Krishna. That is his good luck, and he gets the chance to read some transcendental knowledge. But if you only irritate and he goes away, that is your less intelligence. The fact is that we have to adopt the same tactics as ordinary salesmen adopt, but the difference is we do it for the satisfaction of Krishna, they do it for sense gratification. Actually, we have experienced that sometimes, out of sentiment, someone gives to ISKCON and then laments and wants it back. But that does not mean we should give it back. That's called buyer's remorse. Our policy is that his money, which would have been used for purchasing cigarettes, liquor, sex, literature, meat, will give him the opportunity to gradually become purified. So if by tactics we save that money from being spent on cigarette packets, that is good. If we can take some money and give some literature, that is a good service. So far irritation is concerned, a child is also irritated when he is given instruction. But that does not mean we should stop. Invite them in our feast. That is a better indication. So if the Sankirtan parties in Satsrupa's zone are irritating the public for selling so many books, that is one thing. But by their selling books, they are doing the greatest service. What your 1 hour of preaching will do, they will hear and go away. But if they have one book at home, they will read. Their friends will read. And something solid work is done. So the art is to sell many, many books and not to irritate the publics. So you may instruct all the others how to do this successfully. That is sannyas. That is GBC. There are so many places to go. So why there should be business competition Sankirtan parties in New York? This problem should be adjusted between the GBC men. Hoping this meets you in good health. Your ever well-wisher, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Prabhupada. Prabhupada always sounded A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami and your ever well-wisher. Bali Murdan Goswami, ISKCON, New York. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Anyone have any questions on that book distribution? You have a question on book distribution? Okay, what's that question?
The question is, when someone shows interest and stops, right, and then they start going, can we chase them?
If you can, if you're expert, why not?
No,
I got it. We had it. Yeah, if you're expert enough to stop a person, our devotees developed many tactics. It became so. At one point, I don't want to say professional, but I mean, how else could you say it? We used to have seminars and videos. I think we still have a DVD. When I was cleaning yesterday, I saw it. The Art of Book Distribution by Sheshika Prabhu. So these things were there because it was so important to Srila Prabhupada. You know, so everyone should become expert how to sell a book without irritating. Right? And we're in Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Śrimad Bhāgavatam, 4th Canto, 2nd chapter, text 9. Chapter titled, Daksha Curses Lord Shiva. Shruyatam Brahmarshayo me. Shruyatam Brahmarshayo me. Shruyatam Brahmarshayo me. Sahadeva Sahagnaya. Sahadeva Sahagnaya. Sadhunam Bhruvato Vritam. Sadhunam Bhruvato Vritam. Nagyana Nachamatsarat. Nagyana Nachamatsarat. Please chant.
Shruyatam Brahmashrayo me.
Shruyatam Brahmarshayo me.
Sahadeva Sahagnaya.
Sahadeva Sahagnaya.
Sadhunam Bhruvato Vrittam.
Sadhunam Bhruvato Vritam.
Nagyanam
Nagyanam Chamatsarat. Shruyatam Brahmarshayo me. Sadat Matsarat. Sahadeva Sahagnaya. Sadhunam Bhruvato Vritam. Nagyana Matsarat. Shruyatam Brahmarshayo me. Sahadeva Sahagnaya. Sadhunam Bhruvato Vritam. Nagyana Nachamatsarat. Suryatam Brahmashayo me. Sadeva Sahagnaya. Sadhunam Bravato Vritam. Na Gyanan Chanatsarat. Anyone else?
Yatam Braham Sayame.
Suryatam Brahmashayo me.
Sahadeva Sahagnaya.
Sahadeva Sahagnaya.
Sadhunam Bravato Ritam.
Sadhunam Bravato Vritam.
Najanan Nasha Matsara.
Na Gyanan Chamatsarat. Anyone else? Maharaja, you already did it. You already did. Huh? She didn't do it? Okay, so go ahead, Maharaji. I thought you already did it, no problem. Bolo. Suryatam Brahmashayo me. Sadeva Sahagnaya. Sadhunam Bravato Vritam. Na Gyanana Chamatsarat. Anyone else? Suryatam Brahmashayo me. Sahadeva Sahagnaya. Sadhunam Bravato Vritam. Na Gyanana Chamatsarat. Suryatam. Here. Is that what it says? Here? Okay. Brahma Rishaya. O sages among the Brahmanas. May unto me. Sahadeva. O demigods. Sahagnaya. O fire gods. Sadhunam. Of the gentle. Bruvata. Speaking. Vritam. The manners. Na. Not. Agyanat. From ignorance. Nacha. And not. Matsarat. From envy. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Sri Shivada Govinda Dev Ki Jai. All sages, brahmanas, and fire gods present, please hear me with attention, for I speak about the manners of gentle persons. I do not speak out of ignorance or envy. Please repeat. All sages, brahmanas, and fire gods present.
All sages, brahmanas, and fire gods present.
Please hear me with attention,
Please hear me with attention.
for I speak about the manners of gentle persons.
For I speak about the manners of the gentle persons.
I do not speak out of ignorance or envy.
I do not speak out of ignorance or envy.
Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In speaking against Lord Shiva, Daksha tried to pacify the assembly by presenting in a very tactful way that he was going to speak about the manners of gentle persons, although naturally this might affect some unmannerly upstarts, and the assembly might be unhappy because they did not want even unmannerly persons to be offended. In other words, he was in complete knowledge that he was speaking against Lord Shiva in spite of Shiva's spotless character. As far as envy is concerned, from the very beginning he was envious of Lord Shiva. Therefore he could not distinguish his own particular envy. Although he spoke like a man in ignorance, he wanted to cover his statements by saying that he was not speaking for impudent and envious reasons. Om Jnana Tamarandasya Gadandana Shlakaya Chaksoran Tamina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Lankayate Gurum Yutkipatamaham Bande Shri Gurum Tiratam. This is a good lesson in how to observe by hearing or seeing, mostly by hearing, what is typically now known as what? What do they call this? This is called gaslighting. Are you familiar with the term gaslighting? So basically, he's presenting something in order to establish a narrative that I'm not envy, I'm not stealing. And then he wants to, in this way, fool the people who are in the assembly. So that's the actual definition of gaslighting. So, of course, we know that most of the persons who are assembled there are not so foolish to believe this cover story. But it is being given to us as an example of how such persons do speak in order to make themselves appear to be innocent, when in actuality their heart is filled with matsara, envy. Someone at the door, someone wants to grab that. Make sure it's a... No, that's great, just... We'll see what the demigods are, who they're sending in. So there's no, in Indian Purana, this is, try to appreciate how this is being, in this great volume of transcendental literature, but yet polity and politics, envy and jealousy, all these things are being described for what reason? For the benefit of those who are giving audience to the Śrimad Bhāgavatam, so that they can in the future distinguish between who is a person who is speaking free from envy and jealousy. See, this is also what we said, this is the flowery language. People speak like this, they sugarcoat it, right? And it's the same principle. And there are many such persons like this. And it's not just in philosophical circles, but of course in these assemblies it is the most dangerous, because so many people can be misled on the path of spiritual life by these Vedavada-ratas, these persons who are only speaking just to get an audience, just to cheat everyone, actually. So this is a very important lesson to learn. Not just how to hear, but who to hear from. And so and of course it takes some time, but Prabhupada in the beginning didn't want to leave it to our own discretion. He clearly said, don't go there. Because when the devotees, all went to India in the early days, especially in Vrindavan. There are many, these Ras Mandal, they have going during the rainy season, and they have all these set up everywhere, all over, dozens and dozens. And everyone wants to go see this, Ras Leela, this, that. And they also have some person speaking, and they sit on a nice gutty, nice seat, and they have very nice tilak. They look very presentable. But then they only speak about those things which the audience wants to hear. They're not trying to enlighten them. They're not trying to give them the truth. What is the nature of the material world? What is our position? What is the sambandha? What is the abhideya? What is the prayoja? No. They want to get them, it's just like going to a cinema. They want them to be entertained. And if they're entertained, then the audience will give some donation. So that is their only concern. How much money can I make? So this is so Prabhupada was also cautioning us that in book distribution, we should not be simply trying to irritate someone just to get the money. The principle is to want to give the book. If our motive is pure, then the result is guaranteed. If the motive is, no, I want my name to be at the top of this World Sankirtan newsletter, then that's another defect. Okay? Whatever we do, so what did the letter say? That if a brahmachari went out and simply distributed a few papers, these were simply one sheet of paper, 1 paisa, that if someone was successful in selling those, then Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was thoroughly pleased with that person's endeavor. Why? Because it was done purely and on the order of the spiritual master, that's all. Not for any puja, pratishtha, any profit, distinction, adoration. So none of that should be there. So we have to be careful how we're developing our desires and interactions. When we go out into the public, this is our whole mission, so to speak. Our whole mission. And so we should not be careless in cultivating the correct attitude, right? Because whatever you do in your interactions internally, right? Customer service, if you're any boys here, you're joining your company, your corporate climate, they want to teach you that your clients inside are as important as your clients outside. You have to develop the same attitude. You have to be willing to seize the problem, and make it your own, and bring the solution to the table. Okay, so it doesn't matter if that's in the temple or outside the temple. Okay, so you have to be the same amongst each other. We're not treating each other differently. If I'm thinking, no, I'm treating the devotees like this, and then I can treat the general population. No, it doesn't work like that. So our heart has to be clear in every respect in all of our dealings. And so we're learning these things now as new devotees, old devotees, intermediate devotees. It doesn't matter where you are on the ladder of Bhakti Yoga. But the foundation is important, because otherwise you'll end up offending a great personality. Like here, Daksha's. Who was in that assembly, was there anyone superior? No, not at all. Right? So we had to try to, like I said, preface his offensive speech by pretending that it wasn't going to be offensive speech. Who can imagine that these things are still going on 5,000 years later? And if you observe carefully, you'll see the same tactics are there. So don't be bewildered. Critical thinking is essential. You cannot ignore, the situation and pretend that we're not aware of so-called current events, because you may inadvertently step into a minefield when you're dealing with people who are affected by such things, right? Just like we don't go and approach someone who is obviously going to be, how can you say, inimical. And you can tell from, maybe he's wearing a certain type of garment that indicates that he belongs to a certain type of religion. And you're approaching him is only going to create some agitation. So you have to be sensitive to that situation. All right? If someone comes up to you, that's a different story. But you should be cautious and just find out who are those persons who are receptive. Everyone is receptive, but you have to you don't be, what did Prabhupada use the term here? Irritating. You don't be irritating. All right? There's so many people that will have questions at the end of the class. So just hold that, just keep that thought. So this is, and you see the stress that Srila Prabhupada is putting, this whole letter to one of his top GBC men, was all about how to, keep things in harmony. They had what was called the BBT Library Party. And they were allowed to travel in every zone. They had no restrictions. It was personally sanctioned by Srila Prabhupada. This was almost the same time as Radha Damodar, which was another traveling Sankirtan party, who had similar license. But they abused that license. And what happened, they became irritating. So then Prabhupada had to step in and say, no, you can't do this. You can't go into another zone if they don't want you there. Because each temple is independent. So these are very important things that we had to learn by trial and error. And Prabhupada was very kind. You see how he handled that so nicely in that letter? That you GBC men, you work it out. Because Satru Maharaj was a GBC, Bali Madan was a GBC, so they should get together and figure out what to do, how to cooperate in pushing on book distribution, our most important service. So these things, and obviously we can't do it by offending anybody, whether it's Lord Shiva or whether it's the person on the street. Because if you offend that person, what happens in customer service? What do they say? One bad interaction results in 10 bad reviews. So you don't want that. You don't want someone to say, oh. Matter of fact, there's a whole episode of Krishna, of our history in ISKCON, where we've had these circumstances that were hard lessons to learn. But because this is not an ordinary movement, because this is something sanctioned by a divine lineage. Our Sampradaya is not just ordinary Sampradaya. Brahma, Madhva, Gaudiya. Who is there? And, these 12 Mahajans. And then Narada Muni is prolific in his travels. And who is he? Who are his disciples? Vyas, Dhruva. So many. So this is not an ordinary thing. But due to circumstances, the society found itself embroiled in certain controversies. And every once in a while these things come up. And so you also have to be a little bit aware that these things are in the past. It's not, if you look at any religion, there are so many, what they call, actual skeletons in the closet. And we're not free from that. So these things are there. But we don't dwell on it because we understand that everything is temporary in this situation. That these things, what did Prabhupada say? The dogs will bark, but the caravan will pass. Right? We see that this is a common analogy that's used. So this is something that will there. So people will come to you and say, oh, what about this? What about monkey on a stick? What about this? So this is all coming out again. And you'll hear it. People will approach you and say, you guys are nothing but this, and this. They'll have their thing. You say, wait. You could tell them, well, if you really want to know what it's all about, you should read Bhagavad Gita. Because that has everything in it. And but these things are there. This is just for your information, because we're all out there every day chanting. And we want to make sure that, that we can respond not in a defensive manner. We have nothing to defend. I just say, yes, that's something that was in the past. And we're not, that's just one isolated situation. But if you want to judge us by that, you're welcome to do so. I'm not here to change your mind unless you want to read a book, unless you want to buy a book. This is, but you can always, it's funny how most people will say you can't believe everything you read, which means newspapers, or you can't believe everything you see on TV. So one thing we can tell you people, so you're getting all your information. Well, if you'd like some direct information, here's the book that this is based on, Bhagavad Gita. Check it out. And you'll learn everything you need to know. So anyway, these things are there. So don't be surprised. We have a nice Bhakti program now, right? Bhakti Ryan, have you finished reading Bhagavad Gita yet? 3 times, right? I gave Bhakti Ryan, never tell you? I gave him his first Bhagavad Gita. He was carrying around a Mayavadi Bhagavad Gita. And I told him, I said the same thing that the devotee told me when I had my Mayavadi Bhagavad Gita. I said, that's not Bhagavad Gita. I said, this is Bhagavad Gita. And what can it do? What can the real Bhagavad Gita do? You see, this is how everything works. So we want to give the real Bhagavad Gita as it is to as many people as possible. Because this is how everybody comes, essentially. So we should never, ever minimize or think. Just like yesterday, how much book distribution was done. So nice. So nice. So New York is famous for book distribution. #1 in the world so many times. So this is, we're not looking for the numbers. We're not looking simply just to get this acknowledgement, recognition. But it's a testimony to our love for Prabhupada, to our dedication to Radha Govinda and the mission that we engage in this way. With full faith, determination, in an honorable manner. Right? In an honorable manner. Right? So we're going to read this flowery language of Daksha again, so you get familiar with how these cheaters speak, when they want to cover themselves, Amazing. 5,000 years later, it's still the same thing still going on. All sages, brahmanas, and fire gods present, please hear me with attention, for I speak about the manners of gentle persons. I do not speak out of ignorance or envy. This is almost like advertising that I'm speaking out of ignorance or envy by saying, right? Because Prabhupada used that term. I'm not stealing, I'm not stealing. Right? This is what the thief says. No, I'm not stealing. And so if somebody's speaking like this, I said it's just for our edification, for us to understand how such persons are speaking. So any questions? Now I know that this young man in the back has a question, but you have to speak very loud, very clearly. The microphone is in a set, that's for the benefit of the people online. But so when you speak into it, just don't speak into it so loud that it echoes, because then it makes it hard for everyone in the room to understand. That's perfect.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for a wonderful class. When I was 9 years old, I was touched by Krishna. I didn't know Krishna. My father came into the house and said, "Hi, Krishna." I mean, it was just like, but he didn't know he planted the seed. So fast forward, back in 2004, I met Guru. I thought I was ready, but I wasn't ready. Guru said, "Here's a goatee."
Like Prabhupada, huh?
It was Kirtan Ananda Swami.
Who?
Kirtan Ananda Swami.
Yes, he's there, but we don't speak about him in any ill way.
Yes.
He's in the past.
Yes. So I met him in 2004 and he gave me a goatee. I said, "No, I'm not ready." So he said, "Thank you for being honest." I said, "Okay, thank you." So I left. Fast forward 2006, I met my second wife. She said, "Get rid of the devotees. The priest that's chanting over here is giving prashadam to the parrot. And parrot, get rid of them. Because now the parrot's chanting Hare Krishna."
But there's a question in there someplace, right? What's the question? I didn't.
Question. What? It was just a comment.
Oh.
And now I forgot the comment.
We can comment after. We want to give everyone a chance if they have questions. Any other questions? Today is a very busy day for all of us. We're going to greet the guests, and we want to make sure that Srimati Tulsi Maharani goes upstairs into her winter home, her winter palace. There's a very special room there. That room, many great souls have spent time there, including Ainja Prabhu and Mother Jadharani and other devotees. And we can say such and such person slept here. But now it is Tulsi Maharani's room. So she's the only one. But it is a very famous place. No questions? Yes, question.
Thank you so much for the wonderful class. So my question is that sometimes we also speak out of envy and ignorance, like envy towards devotees especially, but we don't recognize it that we are speaking it. And so how can we stop this?
Well, if you're lucky, that devotee will recognize it for you. And then they'll chastise you. That's why we're living in a temple. This is like a hospital. Some of us are patients and some of us are doctors. And so we have to understand that, the medicine can come even from the nurses. So we're all our brother's keeper, so to speak. And we're looking out for each other. And we're here to make sure that everyone gets the benefit of the rich diversity of association. If you don't take advantage of it, then in the future you'll be deprived of it, and you will not get it. So if you don't relish the association of devotees, Krishna, seated within your heart, will fulfill that desire, and he'll separate you. So this is something that we have to be careful of. Envy is such a thing. It's like a fire that grows very slowly, but it burns very completely one's bhakti lata bij. So there's nothing. The only thing that can put it out is rendering unalloyed devotional service. So if one has that still after chanting Hare Krishna and accepting the process, but he finds that somehow or other his mind is still filled with envy and jealousy, then he must endeavor to do that service which will effectively put this fire out. And all service is absolute. But for some, that service is not the service that they need. It's not the specific medicine. Because they're not, just like cleaning the floor is considerable effort is involved. Physical effort. And then there's other services for which there's no physical effort, practically no mental effort. And while it's absolute, because it's not the specific medicine, just like one time one of my godbrothers, who was famous for avoiding service, practical service. And Prabhupada, he would say, he would always be Prabhupada, like this. And he'd sprinkle some flowers. And Prabhupada looked at him one time and said, "Why don't you do some practical service?" Why don't you do some practical service? So yeah, you can throw flowers at the feet of the Guru. That's service. Absolute service, no question about it. But Prabhupada had a definition for practical service. He gave us, and in Vrindavan especially, he was so disturbed by the fact that even in the new temple, just a year later, things were broken. The deities were not being taken care of nicely. And Prabhupada chastised him severely. It's a famous lecture. That you're giving old flowers to the deities. And you're thinking, whatever money comes, at least let us eat. All right, so this was a great chastisement. This was Prabhupada had such great hopes for the temple, and he became so disappointed just a year later after opening. So things have obviously changed. You know, the devotees took to heart Prabhupada, and also Prabhupada spent a lot of time to put the right persons. And you can see this discussion if you read the conversation. He's talking. He even asked Harisari, with your English brain, because he liked that the English were known for their ability to manage things nicely, even if they maybe resented it, but they acknowledged it. And he asked Harisari, who do you think would be a good president? And Harisari was just the temple commander at the time. He was not even... And so they went over a few names, and Prabhupada listened while Harisari gave his opinion. So this is an interesting exchange. Prabhupada wanted to hear what he had to say. And so anyway, in this way, the Vrindavan temple got the leadership it needed, and the situation came up, but Prabhupada had to apply some heaviness, and bring everybody back in touch with reality. Nowadays they call it a reality check. So Prabhupada was giving the ultimate reality check. Anyway, these things are there. He spent so much time guiding the devotees how to manage these temples. So we take it very seriously. It's not that it's just another building, or that we can be complacent in its management, and that we can neglect things or ignore things. We don't have that luxury, because we are the servants of the spiritual master. If this is my house, I can let it get dirty. I can ignore that this is broken or that's not functioning properly. But this is Prabhupada's house. This is Radha Govinda's house. So to ignore these things is done at a great price to my spiritual life. I should be so attentive that nothing escapes my observation. I may not be the person specifically to take care of it, but I should know who that person is and bring it to their attention. So, in any case, thank you for that question. Very nice question. Any other questions? Mr. Phil? No. Yes, Ram Roy Prabhu.
On the first day of Kartik, 1982, which we could celebrate an anniversary in 5 days, we moved into this building, 305 Skimmerhorn.
Haribo.
About 1982. So happy anniversary, and keeping up the devotional service to Radha Govinda's temple, house, and yatra.
There's a certain perspective. Just remembering when we bought the building and then renovated the building and then moved into the building. All these things they're just like Krishna's pastimes. They're, in one sense, they continue. We're not going to say it's a Nitya Leela, but we see how the building has been transformed, and this is, we can say, a renaissance, because it was fully renovated at one point, and then it fell into disrepair. And now it is again receiving the attention it deserves, because it is Krishna's tadiya, it is non-different from Krishna. But that mentality is acquired gradually, depending on your dedication. Right? It can happen instantaneously. one recognizes, just like if the spiritual master hands you his Grundig transcriber, $1,000 machine, says, here, hold this and take care of it. Don't let it out of your sight. Don't drop it. Don't immerse it in water. You're going to be very careful with that. It was just handed to you directly by the spiritual master. So this building was basically handed to us directly because it is the legacy. Actually, when we purchased 55th Street, and then it was sold, and that's another story. But in the transfer, because for a nonprofit, when a building is sold, everything is kept in a certain trust, not separately in a bank with a certain name, but it's actually managed by the state of New York. Because a religious nonprofit is considered to be, in the eyes of the courts, an infant in need of guardianship. So on behalf of the infant, the state makes sure that the funds, the proceeds from the sale of that building can only be used in the purchase of another building for the same society. Nobody can take anything away from them. So in the paper, in the closing document of the sale that the Attorney General has to approve, it clearly says that this money will be spent for the benefit of ISKCON. And that this proposed purchase, will also be for the benefit of ISKCON. So everything has a continuity. That's the point I was making. That the Lakshmi that was there from the sale of 55th Street is here in this building, in this structure. So in that sense, it is non-different. And as Prabhupada was there and his energy was there, so his energy is also here. But you have to develop that mood, that attitude, that realization. Then this building will magically transform. Now it is slowly transforming. But if you want to see magic transformation, then you have to have your mind fixed. That I need to make this, I need to have this in such a way that if Prabhupada walked in the door, if Krishna walked in the door, that he would be pleased. Okay? That's our ultimate goal. And so that's the eyes you have to see. When it says Shastra Chakshush, it's not that I walk around seeing visions of the Śrimad Bhāgavatam everywhere I look. All right? I'm seeing with the eyes of Shastra means I'm seeing with this unalloyed, unmotivated, uninterrupted vision which is described in the Shastra, which is applied to everything. Because the Shastras are the manifestation of the absolute truth. And so therefore I need to try to align myself. And we're doing that by chanting Hare Krishna every morning. That's what we're doing. We're aligning, just like you take your car, you know, you get an ISKCON car, right? Everybody knows ISKCON. Get an ISKCON car and you drive down the road and the thing is shaking and rattling and rolling. The shocks are shot, the tires are shot, everything is shot, right? And what do you have to do? You have to take it for an alignment, right? You have to maintain it. So every day we're doing our alignment. We're chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Why? Because we need to become aligned. So every single day. Otherwise what happens? We're going to be shaky. Going down the road of spiritual life. You won't be able to make it to the goal. So we have to be, you know, and that also means, you know, if you see somebody else who's out of alignment, you need to touch them and say, Prabhu, you need to stand up and walk around and chant. The sleepy japa is not going to get your alignment correct. Can't have that sleepy japa. Okay? Have that. You see the devotees, what happens? They chant all the time. And you can't do that. That's not going to get you back home, back to Godhead. Truck drivers have a device. Anyone who's a long-haul truck driver, obviously it's a big danger. You know, it's I mean, there's many names for it. But basically you become hypnotized by the white line. And that's what they call it. So they have this device they wear over their ear that has mercury in it. So the mercury, as soon as your head starts to droop, the mercury makes contact and it vibrates. So maybe we should get that for some of the sleepy Japa heads. So you put it on your ear, and as soon as your head starts to drop, it bzzz. Long-haul truck drivers. I mean, there's many ways, but that's one. Any other questions? Okay, we want to get to greet the guests, move Srimati Tulsimarani. You have a quick one, Urugai? It's got to be quick.
From the sale of 55th Street.
What?
From the sale of 55th Street.
Yes.
How many different locations have been?
There was a lot of properties purchased. Lake Huntington, Tawako, and 846 7th Avenue. But the GBC realized their mistake post facto, unfortunately. And so they decided to sell the Manhattan Center, which Toshan Peru and I had worked on for over a year at that time. Extremely hard labor construction to make the restaurant a cultural center. And we were basically finished. And of course, we brought a lot of value into the building, which had been run down. And so they saw that, okay, so we ended up having to sell that building because it was the most valuable asset at the time, and then buy this one. So in essence, like that, and of course, Radha Govinda are the most valuable asset. And so they were there on 7th Avenue. We were taking care of them in a very humble way. And then, of course, we wanted to make a nice situation for them. We tried our best. And so that's the history, to a certain extent, that the legacy of Henry Street, 55th Street, 7th Avenue, is everything is wrapped up inside 305 Skimmerhorn Street. So that's why this is, and everything is here. So not when Prabhupada was speaking with the bus driver, Mr. Rubin, and he said that I have temples. And Prabhupada, Mr. Rubin said, where are those temples? And Prabhupada said, simply separated by time. Simply separated by time. So this is a continuing pastime. It's not that, we've become less capable, less competent, or less. I mean, this building has increased in value, not quite, a significant amount. I don't know, 100-fold, more than 100-fold. And so the fact that that there's an empty or partially empty building next door, just filled with stuff that can be put into other places. And you can build a magnificent structure there for the glorification of Sri Sri Radha Govinda, Sri Sri Gaur Nitai, Jagannath Baladev Subhadra, and Srila Prabhupada. This is your opportunity. This is your battle of Kurukshetra. Where Krishna says, all these personalities, they're already dead by my hand. You just have to take the credit. So everything is already done. That building is already there, simply separated by time. You just have to take the credit for it and get it done. So this is a lifelong thing. Okay? Just like we're celebrating in April of 2025, we're celebrating the 50th anniversary of Sri Vrindavan Krishna Balaram Mandir. 50 years. For those of us who were there, it's hard to think 50 years ago on. And they're also going to be building here. And that will have a similar effect. People will come back and say, yes, there'll be a 50th anniversary. We'll have to see when, but it will be there. Yeah. And it will be the most impressive structure in ISKCON. Yeah. Maybe next to the TOVP. But this will be in the most important city. So in that sense, it will be the most important structure. Because if it's the most important city, then it must be the most important structure. Right, Ramway? Right? Right? It'll be anything that's connected with New York has to be the most important.
You can make it here, you can make it anywhere.
That's correct. If you can make it here, you can make it anywhere.
Even from ordinary observation point of view that anybody can see, what we see is Krishna's mystical hand transforming this area. And as you said, how the equity value is increased by unlimited multiplications, that why did this whole downtown Brooklyn develop the way it has in the last 20 more years? It's because Radha Govinda are here, and Radha Govinda.
Yes. All by the mercy of Radha Govinda and His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki. And so now we're going to focus our efforts on the rest of the program and get everything ready for the guests who will be coming. And please make sure that you give your full attention to the temple commander, who will be grabbing people to engage them in pure devotional service, to get everything ready for the guests. Śrimad Bhāgavatam ki, Shri Shri Radha Govinda Dev ki, Gaur Premanandi. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki.